Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the Boot Nerds podcast. JayMike, what's up?
Straight out of Denmark coming at you. I'm good. How are you, my friend?
I am doing all right. It's given the circumstances, I'm doing pretty good.
You're still sat in your living room.
I am.
Yeah, but it'll be fine, I guess. I hope. But we're gonna cheer you up today because we have I don't actually know if you're gonna be cheered up with the topic that we have for you today. If you guys have seen the title, you've probably recognized that today we're gonna complain a little bit. And after all, that is what you like to do the best. So maybe it'll cheer you up. I hope that. But before we get started, obviously, if you haven't subscribed to the Boot Nerds podcast yet and have found this by some weird way on YouTube or on your podcast services, make sure you actually go and subscribe to the Boot Nerds podcast channel on YouTube. Click the little bell notification button to see all the latest podcasts when they come out every Thursday at, depends on where you're at in the world. So yeah. But every Thursday. So go do that, and also remember to leave your comments, questions in the comment section right down below. That was super unsmooth, so I suggest you take it away from here on out. But before we go to the pet peeves, we're gonna talk about boots. Yeah.
Yes, because this is the Boot Nerds podcast. We should talk about boots.
Right. So Adi just released their brand new input code pack. It features this bad boy, a white and gold and slightly blue COPA19 Plus. There's a gold Predator, which I have misplaced right now, and also at least in Europe, which is a funny story, the black, navy, and gold X19 Plus and X19.1, and it kind of completes the package that is the inner game and the input code. So it also actually kind of visually at least includes the Nemesis 19 Plus from Inner Game, which is also blue, black, and gold. And the story behind this is kind of funny because for us Europeans, this has just launched the X19 Plus from the input code pack. But it looks more like the Inner Game pack, which included the Nemesis. See, the thing is that you guys over in the States and in Canada and North America, you've had the X19 Plus in navy, black, and gold for quite a while, haven't you?
We have. I want to say it's been out for like a good 2 months. The X and the Nemesis, which I was very confused when I saw the new colorway pack and it included boots that have been out for 2 months.
Yeah, I understand that. And the thing is that we were also confused. So somewhere in the world, this was Inner Game, and in Europe and maybe other parts of the world as well, this is now input code, the X19 Plus that I'm holding in my hands here. So that's a bit of a funny thing. What do you reckon about the 2-3 new boots here?
I don't love the X. I think the black is unnecessary. It would have been better if they just kept the blue and the gold. I like the combo of blue and gold, but the black, I don't know. It seems out of place in my opinion.
Bro, you need to step up, man. The X19 Plus is amazing. I love the black, navy, and gold. I think this is a fantastic colorway. They really got to make a killer colorway in order to beat this combo. Black. As you say, navy gold, it always works together. It looks super high class, very premium, but the black just kind of tops it off for me. It's amazing.
The Copa, however, is really that should have been the launch color.
Oh yes, it should.
I like the white and gold. It reminds me, and I know it's not an Adidas product, but it reminds me a lot of, remember the Nike Tiempo Legend 4 Elite in white and gold and had a little volt at the heel?
Yep.
That's what I immediately thought of with those, because it's got that pearly white finish rather than just regular white.
And also it's not a shiny gold. It's like this matte gold coin ish gold. It's really, really nice. And actually goes quite well with the blue stud tips. I agree. It's a killer look for the Copa. Pred, I'm not the biggest fan. It might as well have been, it looks a lot like the DBZZ Pred 18 Plus that they did. Was it 19 Plus?
It was a 19 plus. I want to say it was.
Yeah.
Little bold for me. Not my style. I don't know.
I agree. But that's the way it goes, and you can't win everything. And I guess maybe that blue is a little bit too light for me for it to really work with the gold. But I mean, I'm an old guy, so maybe it's just too youthful for my taste. I don't know. Maybe it's a hit.
Okay, now let's get to some complaining. So
wow.
What I thought would be very fun to talk about, and I'm actually curious because we have not previously discussed this, if maybe the answers vary depending on region, because I'm going to assume that some of the trends and stuff that you see in Europe are a lot different than what you would see where I play. So what we're going to talk about are pet peeves, or things that annoy us about football boots, wearing football boots, other people's boots, anything that is equipment related. Feel free to complain about it. You can start, I can start, it doesn't matter.
I think I'm going to let the master complainer start here.
Okay.
Because you probably have, well, naturally, you're going to have more than me because you just complain. You're actually a bit of a bad Canadian because you complain so much. What was that all about?
I feel it's important to let people know how you feel. I think we both.
Then again, you always complain in a nice way, so I guess that way.
I feel like I'm pretty nice. So, number one on my list, and this drives me nuts. This is more of a personal thing, and maybe there's people out there that agree with me. I'm not. Some people might consider this to be like a little bit OCD, and I'm really not OCD about most things. But when I tie my boots up and the laces are all twisted, that drives me insane. Like I can't do that. I have to straighten them out so they sit flat across the top of a foot rather than all twisted. Because that's just if you have twisted up laces on your boots, like you're psycho. What's wrong with you?
What? Who in their right mind would have twisted laces? When does that ever happen?
You don't see people doing that?
Twist their laces?
The laces are all twisted up. Because you know when you lace them up and you're like not careful, because usually laces are a little bit flat on football boots, right?
Yeah.
So when you lace them up and you're not really careful, like you can twist them up and then they end up kind of all spiraled rather than sitting perfectly flat.
I have honestly never seen that. Maybe we're just really good at lacing our football boots in Europe, but I've never seen that actually.
Oh, okay, that drives me nuts.
But it sounds really annoying.
It's horrible.
To be honest.
It's horrible. You don't want it.
Nah, okay. Well, for me, one of my pet peeves is, and it's a completely different directions, is that, you know, the brands launch a lot of the same colorways at the same time. I mean, I'm absolutely losing my mind when we get a really nice colorway from Nike, and then 2 weeks later, Adidas come out with not the same colorway, but a similar colorway. It's not as bad as it was, I want to say, maybe 8 years back when it was a really, really big thing. I remember there was an Adi Power and a T90 Laser. I actually have the Adi Power behind me. The blue slime and was it white? Yeah, the blue slime white. That where there was basically a T90 Laser 3 in the exact same colorway. You remember those, right?
I know exactly which ones you're talking about, yeah.
Like it drove me absolutely crazy. And I do feel that we're kind of seeing this, where you can also argue that the Mercurial Superfly 6 level ups and the Nemesis, which I don't really remember the name of, the white ones with the crazy German-like flag on top of the bands. I mean... Look, the brands plan this way ahead, 2 years ahead, right? But they're still, you know, maybe they're using the same hype trend agencies. I don't know what's going on, but it's just bugging me that there seems to be too much correlation in the colorways they put out, which for me can be a little bit off-putting.
Yeah.
And yes, there will be seasonalities, and then you want blackout boots to come out at a certain point, and then you want pop-in colors to come out at a different point, and all that stuff. I get it, but just the fact that the boots now also, not only in terms of technologies are kind of similar, everyone's using knit, but also in terms of colorways. I mean, it just gets a bit much, and it gets on my nerves.
Yeah, I think it's just too many colorways in general. Like I'd be fine with new colorway packs every 2 to 3 months, if I'm being honest. But I mean, the brands are going to do what they want to do based on. They seem to be of the opinion lately that it makes more sense to release more boots rather than less boots. And I guess from a social media perspective and drawing attention to the brand, that does make sense. But yeah, you end up with a lot of similar colors these days.
Yeah. I was talking about this, and it was actually the opposite colorway of this, where the slime was on the stripes and the blue was the main colorway. It was the launch colorway, actually.
Yeah, the launch Adi Power, yeah. And it was a T90 Laser 3.
Exactly. And I can see you looking around, searching for it. I don't think you're going to find it, my man. It looks like a... Yeah. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, Josh is basically sitting in his living room and it's full of boxes. And I pity the fool who has to look for the boot that's in a box furthest to the wall. That's going to be a bad day.
Can't wait to carry this back down the stairs. It's going to be great. It's going to be an excellent day. Okay. On to pet peeve number 2 for me. It's also lace related, and it's the last one, I promise, with the laces. But it drives me absolutely crazy to play with laces and having like big giant loops and just a lot of extra lace just hanging around and flopping around on top of my foot. A lot of people have noted in pretty much all of my videos is that I'll tuck the lace into the side of the upper whenever possible. That's something I've done pretty much my entire life, just because I don't like having the laces flopping around on top of my foot. It's visually disturbing, and I'm very paranoid that I'm gonna like catch a stud into one of the lace loops that's flopping around and like trip on my foot. It's never actually happened, but it's something that I think about.
The funny thing is that I actually hate tucking my laces into the boot because it kind of disrupts the connection, especially in the days of these sock-like boots. It really disrupts the connection between the boot and my foot. So I actually don't like it. What I usually do is I try to tie my laces so the knot is on the outside of the boot, so it doesn't really get in the way when I'm striking the ball. So I always tie the knot out here, and then the lace loops can flap around as much as they want to. But well, that's just basically what I do. Call me crazy. Now another thing that I really hate about laces, you can see how I've done this up nicely. One thing I hate is when people take photos or videos of boots and they don't pull the laces in, so the laces are just like hanging around, flapping, and just being in the way. I always take the laces out of the last lace loop so they're not in the way and they're actually sitting on the inside of the boot, because otherwise it looks so sloppy. I mean, if you do this, let me just explain to those people who are audio only, basically where the lace is on the outside of the boot, and then you take a picture, so you tuck the lace in the big opening of the boot, so you can kind of see the lace going out and then in again. It just looks so terrible, and it's not the way the boot is supposed to be presented.
I very much agree with you. Very much agree with you on that one. That is a good one.
It's the nerdiest pet peeve in the history of football boots, but I really, it erupts me the wrong way, man.
That is a good one. All right. Well, here, I got another one, not lace related. Talked about laces way too much already.
Wow.
This is not sponsored by SR4U laces in any way at all. Just want to put that out there. By the way,
shameless plug.
My chair was savable. So I'm now sitting.
I bet you it was the first thing you saved.
It was not, but it did.
Okay, but it was apparently worth walking through tons of pool water to save your chair.
It's custom made. Like, you can't get that on the back for free.
I know.
It's not.
But this is also a discussion maybe for another day. When are things custom made? Like, obviously your chair is custom made because you did something to it yourself. But does that really count?
It does. It does.
Okay.
Counts.
Fair enough.
Totally counts.
Officially custom made. Okay, go on.
I think you're going to agree with me on this one, especially as somebody that has tested a good amount of boots. It's one thing to have your boots a little bit too small. That's just more uncomfortable and something that you typically don't do. But when your boots are just a little bit too big or way too big, I would rather not play. Like, it drives me absolutely insane.
I actually used to be able to play with boots that were slightly too big, basically because I have a small foot. I'm a US 7, so a Europe size 40. That's basically the foot size of an 11-year-old. But my foot has always been relatively small. So in order to fit into high-end boots, which I started taking an interest to very early, I basically had to live with boots that were a little bit too big. But these days, being used to boots that just have a perfect fit, I can't do it, man. Even just playing going half a size up and it doesn't feel right, when there's clearly too much room in the space of the boot, it ruins my entire match. It takes my mind off of things. I can't deal with it.
Yeah, it drives me. It's something that I cannot forget about while I'm playing, which is not a good thing. You never want to be, I think it's always a bad thing if you're having to think about the boots on your feet for any reason at all. And I actually got, I would say around like 15, 16 years old, I got in a bad habit of actually buying boots that were too small because of how much I hated the feeling of just having a little bit of extra space. And it was a terrible idea because I would end up with like blisters, and just playing with like slightly curled toes is not ideal. But I did that for a long time just based on how much I hated my boots being a little bit too big.
Speaking of someone who plays with curled up toes, I guess most of you guys know Jolter, my colleague and friend from Unisport. He basically he's probably, he has a really wide foot. And to get the best possible fit, I'd probably say he should go 41 and a half in Europe sizes. And he's a 40 and a half in match boots, which is absolutely insane. I mean, he's destroying the boots, and his toes are basically crumbled up like that, really, really squeezed together. And I think he's halving the length of his toes when he gets down into his football. It's absolutely mad, and I wouldn't be able to do that either.
Yeah, it's actually really bad. Like long term, that's really bad for you. Which is partially why I stopped, because I started to like notice like, oh wow, my toes are like almost like permanently in this like crunched position, and I don't think they should be that way. But definitely can't deal with them being too big.
But this is also something that I'm actually happy about. The brands, especially Nike, they used on the Mercurial at least, they used the last that did run a quarter of a size long, which means that at least for me, I know in Nike boots, I'm always a US 7, always. But for the Vapor 8, the Vapor 9, and they fixed it for the Vapor 10. So Vapor 8 and 9, no matter what I did, they didn't fit me perfectly because they were just slightly too long for me. And as much as I love the boots, coming back to a last that's actually perfectly aligned in terms of what size it should be in that, or how long it should be in that size, it feels so good these days. And the brands have just gotten very good at that.
That's, what Vapor 8 and 9 were the same exact thing. I always felt like there was just a little bit there that drove me nuts.
Also because they were so slim, right? So it's just a very slim, very long boot. Maybe they built it on a really wide foot. I don't know. Weird.
Jay, you ever play with somebody that has like boots that are like legitimately like 2 sizes too big, and there's so much extra space that the toe has started to like curl up a little bit?
Yeah. I've tried that and I've seen that and sometimes you just gotta, my teammates are great, but I've just given up. I mean, there was a guy the other day at my team. We were going to a match, and he used to wear the Legend 8 Pros. And he's already basically destroyed him. I don't know how, but he destroyed him. So we went down, got a pair of new boots. Basically, they cost him $20. They were, I think, the 4.4s, if they exist, off the Puma ones in the blue red colorway. And I just, like, I don't know how he can play with these boots. They weren't too big or anything. They just looked chunky and bad. But
not good. Not good.
Yeah.
Not good. Drives me nuts. What do you got?
Well, another thing that drives me a little bit crazy, and that maybe just has to do with the fact that I have a lot of football boots. So you probably know the same thing, is that when you play on your team and you show up every training in new boots, because I have to, I test them all the time. They always come and ask you, "Oh, can you give me a size 45 or a size US, whatever?" I'm like, no, I don't have them. B, no, they're my boots. And yes, I do have a lot, and yes, could I give some away? Absolutely. But it's also, I don't think people really understand what it means to be a nerd and a collector at the same time, because we actually take pleasure and pride and obviously it's a privilege, but we take pleasure in having this many boots and having the choice. So while I do tend to help out my teammates who have the same foot size as me, because believe it or not, there are grown people with size 40 feet. but still, it just rubs me the wrong way when just because you have a lot of something, people just assume that they can get stuff for free. Especially from a collector, because we're a little bit crazy, aren't we?
You do have a little bit of that like football boot Santa Claus look, though.
I do. I'm actually working on my beard, but for some reason my girlfriend always complains about it, so I have to shave it off. So yeah.
Yeah, that is a really common thing, especially like when you go and play just like with a random group and you meet up every week, and then on like the third or fourth week, all of a sudden somebody figured out who you are and they went and looked up what you do, and then all of a sudden they want to be your best friend, and hey, just out of the blue they're asking for some free boots, right? Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that, but it's kind of something that comes with the territory. But you know what? Like, in all honesty, I've probably given away probably at least 100 boots at this point.
Yeah.
Like it's something that I don't mind doing if it's somebody that I actually know and I'm legitimately friends with, and they're not just trying to be friends with me because they want something for free.
Yeah. And it's nice to be able to help friends out, right? And this is also where the whole privilege comes in, because we're in a position where we're actually able to do that. But it's just the whole assumption that, okay, he has a lot of football boots. Can I ask for a size that's obviously way different to what this guy wears?
I just thought of something. Have you been getting, this is like a trend over the last month on Instagram, people DMing you saying how many likes for a free pair of whatever boot it is?
Yep.
Where did that come from?
I have no idea. I mean, okay, so if you get 10,000 likes, I'm not going to get you a boot. But if you get 15,000 likes, you're going to get a boot. How does that benefit me? I don't know you, friend. I've no clue where this trend comes from. And I mean, if it works for some people, good job. Because you have been hustling someone hard.
I just don't. But I love it when it's like you then you go to check the account, like, oh, maybe they have a lot of followers or something, and it's like a private account with 15 followers and like 2 posts, and they're promising 25,000 likes. And this I like how this trend started right after Instagram pretty much stopped showing the likes anyways.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why people think that like there's really no value to you getting likes on a picture that would want. I don't know. It's an unexplainable phenomenon, I have to say.
Instagram stopped showing likes with you guys.
Yeah. Oh, is that not, that didn't happen in Europe yet?
No, I'm just checking my last post, and I can see my own likes. But if I check my favorite lace pusher, SR4U, you really need to work on that Instagram handle as well, my man. I can see how many likes you have on your latest image, which is quite cool, by the way.
That might be I know that they originally rolled it out in Canada, actually, but I'm not sure if it's a US thing as well. It might be all of North America. Yeah, we haven't seen, like, I haven't been able to see anyone else's likes for at least 2 months.
Wow, that's impressive. Now, just taking a bit of a detour here, it's actually the same trend we see on YouTube. For people who are watching this on YouTube, you might be familiar with the fact that YouTube now has also rolled out a new way of showcasing or showing your subscriber count. So you don't see the exact number, and you can't use services like Social Blade to track how many subscribers you're actually getting or losing on a daily basis. It's funny how all of a sudden, this trend going against tracking and tracking your growth or lack of growth has been turned around, because apparently so many people, that's what they say, have been too focused on all of this. And it's not about the content anymore. It's just about the numbers. What's your take on this? Super quick.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that you could.
Well, now you know.
I didn't know you could not track it, but I think it's a good thing, because the thing about Instagram, it's like, okay, some kid randomly messages me and promises me 50,000 likes on a picture. He can totally do that by going on some website and paying $5 to get 50,000 likes on a picture. Like, and it doesn't mean anything. There's so many Instagram accounts that I've seen, boot related and not, that, all of a sudden they have like this crazy amount of likes, but there's no followers. Like, I love it when you see like a 80,000 likes on a picture and there's like 3 comments. It's like, how's that possible? That doesn't make any sense.
$5, my friend. $5.
Right? Like, there's no way that many people saw your stuff and just chose to not say anything. I don't know. I think it's a good thing, though. I think the content is what's important rather than the numbers.
Yeah. And obviously we're going to sound a bit like, those are the holy content creators. They just want their, it to be about the content. Of course, we also care about statistics and, tracking growth and all that stuff. But I think it's healthier for people who do this for a living. And maybe you and I aren't as effective because we don't have all the, the hate going back and forth with, like diss tracks. And we should totally make a diss track, by the way. But it's not the football boot environment isn't as toxic as some of the other environments, right? On YouTube. So I think it's a good move, to be honest.
Well, maybe not for you, but you've never made a negative review of an Adidas takedown model. People get mad.
Not of an Adidas takedown model. I think we can count of, let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
So back to the pet peeves. Man, you set me up there. Now here in my hand, I'm holding the Nike Phantom Vision. Basically because this boot in itself, we've talked about it. We've talked about it a lot, to be honest. But it kind of embodies a thing I kind of have with boots that. You have a fantastic boot in the Phantom Vision. Let's not beat around the bush. There's so much going for it. A great thin, really soft upper, a lot of texture on the ball. Decent outsole for what it's made for. But then for some reason, maybe they ran out of money. But Nike have just decided to incorporate an element of the dynamic fit collar sock here, which is made out of circular knit. That's it's not even circular knit. This is even like this is some takedown stuff knit. On a boot at €270. And it's just a thing when brands, they kind of take the cheap option and think it's going to be okay, but then make people pay an absolute premium for it. Obviously, the Phantom Vision is the best example, but some things, things like that, they just really, really annoy me because they can completely destroy my love for a product that is actually, dynamic fit collar pod quite decent for a lot of people. So this is just something that can ruin a boot experience for me when the brands have kind of jumped the lowest part of the fence, if that's an expression in English. You know what I mean? They've kind of taken the easy route. And that just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, no, I just like how this started as, wow, Josh is such a complainer. He's really good at this. This is all he does. Meanwhile, you probably have, I would say in a good 50% of the Boot Nerds episodes, you have complained about the Phantom Vision at least once. It's excellent. I love it. I think if we ever were to do merch, it should be a picture of you on a t-shirt holding up a Phantom Vision with a heart around the picture. That would be awesome. We'd sell hundreds of those.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I'm totally against just unnecessary gimmicky elements on football boots, and that is legitimately a football boot that was designed as a low, and at the last second they're like, oh, you know what? We should probably make it a mid. Let's just sew this into the opening and call it a day. Just really, really unnecessary. It's visually not good. I'm not sure who made that decision and thought, hey, does this look better with this little thing we added in? Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, let's just make it like that. It's not better at all. It's 100% worse.
And it looks so good without. I mean, it actually looks like a silhouette that I'd consider wearing. And with the sock, it just doesn't. And it just ruins because if the bad knit sock, let's call that cheap knit sock, dynamic fit collar hadn't been there, I actually would have looked at this and said, okay, this is actually worth the price because we have expensive materials, we have expensive manufacturing methods here. It's just, man, that's just wrong. It's like if Ferrari built a really, really expensive car like they do and then put in a super cheap plastic seat instead of like a carbon fiber one or whatever they do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, a cheap element in an otherwise expensive premium product can just ruin the whole experience. And that's one of my main peeves that just be a little more thorough, guys, when you do this. Because it's a lot of money they're asking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like a really simple oversight. But whatever.
Another thing I don't like is when brands innovate for the sake of innovation. We've kind of touched on it with the Puma Future that I think we both feel have taken a route away from what we at least personally like. I know there was a comment saying that a lot of really young players, they love the Puma 4.1, Future 4.1, sorry. And maybe we're just getting too old. And that might be the case. I'm just saying I don't like innovation for the sake of innovation, to bring something new to the marketplace because you have to, because everyone else does it. You might ruin a perfectly good product. And that can also really annoy me.
Yeah, no, it happens a lot. Like I don't know if you saw the new iPhone, but it now has 3 cameras because 2 was not enough. I mean, I have no idea what the third camera does, but I just thought it was really, really funny that there's now 3 cameras on a phone. Because it's like, I was thinking, I'm like, what? I have the newest iPhone and I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, they're going to announce a new one in a week. What could they possibly do at this point? Oh, let's throw on another camera. I love it. It's awesome. Anyways, pet peeve, and I think you'll agree with this one. I can't stand it when people walk through parking lots with their boots on.
Oh why is that God. Why do people do this?
It drives me nuts. I've played with guys like, 16 years old, everyone starts getting their driver's license and stuff. So they're driving to practice themselves. And guys that literally come out of their car and they were driving with their boots on. Like, what are you doing? Like, is it that much effort to just like put them in your bag and then put them on once you get on the pitch? Like, is it that big of a deal? It's just craziness.
Tell you what, I have a confession. When I was younger, this was before my boot nerd days. I actually used to ride my bike to practice wearing my football boots.
Wow!
Because I actually thought that the little studs would
dig into the pedals
and give me better grip in the pedals to make it more efficient. So
it would work. Yeah. That's good logic. I would use the same logic as a child.
I was one of those guys, but yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. So I'm one of those guys. I always walk with my boots in my hands when I go to matches, and only put them on the pitch because you don't want to ruin them. We all saw what happened when you were out playing with the poor mercurial takedowns on concrete, right?
Yeah. That just
killer.
Shows you exactly. I just want it funny because it kind of relates into a very funny Canadian thing that I figured you might find entertaining. But when little kids first start playing hockey, like 4 or 5 years old, it's also a hockey thing. I'd have to mention hockey in every podcast at some point. What a lot of kids do and a lot of parents do, mainly because it's easier, because when you play really little hockey, it's like 6 a.m. in the morning. Like it's really, really early. So instead of bringing your equipment in a bag and putting it on in the changing room at the arena, they'll get dressed at home, skates included, even the helmet. And you'll just see these little kids walking through a parking lot, and they put just like skate guards on the bottom so the steel doesn't get all scuffed up. And they just walk in. It's something you would only, I think, ever see in Canada probably, but it's just a hilarious sight when you see or they'll make a pit stop at like the gas station or something. Yeah. And you'll go into the little convenience store and you'll just see this little kid completely dressed up in hockey gear, helmet and everything. Oh, it's great. It's awesome.
Wow.
Very funny.
One more thing for me is when, I basically have two things. I'm from Jamaica, man. One is when people, what was that laugh?
I don't know.
Anyway, one is when people take the laces out of their laced up boots to get a laceless boot. Just don't do it. Buy a laceless boot.
Okay. Want to hear a funny story with that? I went in Toronto, they hold these Tango League events. I don't know if they have any over there, but I always get the invites, so I always go. And the last event, it was like the Nemesis was just coming out, and they gave all of the people playing the Nemesis 19.3, but with laces. 0.3, but with laces. And it's kind of got it's a one piece construction, but it's kind of one piece folding over the other, and it's very loose material. And I get there, and I showed up probably an hour after it started. It was absolutely pouring rain, so I walked in completely soaked. And I just happened to notice that there's like orange laces all over the floor everywhere. Like people were pulling the laces out and playing. So I start watching, and it's like 4-on-4, or maybe it was 3-on-3, whatever it is. And everyone's boots are just flying off. Like in a span of an hour, I think I saw 10 people's boots fly off. And it's just because of this one reason. And it's like follow the leader. One guy does it and then everyone's like, oh, that's a really good idea. Let me do that as well. And I don't understand how people think it's a good idea to take the laces out and you have these like super loose, unstable, kind of dangerous to wear boots, but people do it.
But that's because they don't know. And they figured, hey, I can save some money. I can just make my own laceless boot. But the problem is, and we've made so many videos talking about this, but the problem here is that when you take your laces out of a boot that's supposed to have laces, well, the rest of the boot isn't built to hold your foot in place. And the laceless boots, while they're not as great lockdown-wise as boots with laces, they at least are built to give you some sort of hold and basically lock your foot in place to some capacity. And you know, so when you take the laces out of a boot with laces that's supposed to have laces, it doesn't know what to do in order to hold your foot in place because the laces usually take care of that. So it's like taking the pilot out of an airplane and still expect it to fly. I mean, technically it can these days, but you know what I mean.
What a horrible example.
Terrible. Yeah, I know.
All right, go ahead. Will you have more complaints?
When people have socks or shin pads that are supposed to go on either your left and your right leg, and it says so on the product, and you put them on the wrong way. Please, guys, please. It says right there on your shin pad, R. That's not your left leg. It's your right leg. It says R on the tip of the sock, and you tell me, your teammate, this sock has a terrible fit. My friend, it's because you put it on the wrong foot and it's right there and I cannot stand it.
Oh, that's a good one. Because you see that all the time. That's awesome. I love it too. Like some shin guards are pretty generic in shape and the left and right are barely different. But then you have like those really popular mercurial ones where like the one edge comes up really high. Oh, that's great. That's a good one. I really like that one.
Also, when people then use sock tape, right? And then they use the thin sock tape that they can use Premier sock tape. I always use wrap, but that's just me. But then they use the sock tape and they basically tie it so tightly around their leg that it shuts off half of the blood flow. And then they complain about how they can't feel their toes after the match. I mean, stop it. Stop. Just, probably because they don't know better, but it just really, really makes me want to tell them what to do. But again, not everyone will be as nerdy as us. We just gotta accept the fact.
No.
Do you have more pet peeves though? Because otherwise, we can move on to some pretty good questions.
I have a few more to go over. We'll go over really quickly, but just on the shin guard topic, you see this a lot with like adults who are just starting to play, but they'll buy shin guards with the ankle protector. And they'll wear them over top of their socks. Oh,
fashion police.
That's a bad one. That one's bad. That's really bad. But I got a few more. Heel slippage of any kind drives me absolutely insane. Can't deal with it. When you get brand new boots, I can manage them getting dirty, but when you get a scuff like the first time you wear them, that isn't super annoying.
Yeah, white boots on AG, that's terrible.
Yeah, that's typically not a good. We talked about that. Oh, this one is bad. When people try to put their boots on without using their hands and they just like crush the heel and just like jam. Oh, that irks me. That's not a good one. That's a really bad one.
Yeah, or when after they've played, they actually come in to the locker room and then they just basically squeeze their still laced up boot off with the stud of the other foot, just kind of kicks it off. No.
Yeah, I think we've all played with that one guy who like gets new boots, ties them once, and that's the only time he will ever need to tie them because they never get untied or retied. Just jams them on. Oh, I know, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
People that blame their boots too frequently, it's a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
Like when you just sky a free kick or take a corner kick and it doesn't even go in bounds at any point ever.
Unless they're 2 sizes too big, then it's okay because it sucks.
Yeah, that's okay. And then this is not so much boot related, but definitely equipment related. I can't stand playing with a slightly underinflated ball of any kind. That drives me nuts.
Yeah, it is annoying.
Have you ever played with like one of those really cheap balls that has this like a sticky outer coating?
Yeah. And
like you just can't, like you feel handicapped. You can't dribble at all. That drives me nuts as well.
Or if it's the other direction, like the blue Champions League finale ball from Adidas had a couple of seasons back. I think it's a year ago now.
Yeah, a year ago.
It was overly slippy. It was terrible. There's no grip on it. Hate
I don't know.
that
I find that when I dribble, I'm more of a dragger than a pusher. So when the ball's too sticky, it's bad news for me. I'm tripping all over the place.
Great.
All right.
You out of pet peeves?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we kind of just blew through a list pretty quickly there. But yeah, I think so. You got any more?
I've got nothing more to complain about.
Oh, actually, no, I do have one more.
Wow, of course you do.
You know when you get a brand new pair of boots and I get messages about this all the time, so I figured we'd address it. You probably get the same thing. You know when you get that little bit of separation between the sole plate and the upper, just at the edge, usually it's at the tip of the toe, and it's not, the boots aren't broken, but it just kind of separated at the very, very lip. That's super annoying.
Yep.
Especially when you get brand new boots, but it doesn't mean that your boots are broken, by the way.
No, not at all. It's just it just doesn't. It's like when you probably you guys know when you open a new glass of peanut butter and you kind of stick your knife in it for the first time. It's just nice when the surface is flat and smooth and perfect. And I've probably got a lot of issues saying that, but it kind of ruins the whole experience of having a fresh pair of boots. Yeah, I don't like it either.
That's an excellent example. I really like that.
It's better than the airplane example, though.
It was.
Anyways, on to the questions, though, because we have a lot of good ones today, and the ones we might not have time to answer today, we're going to look at those next time. But if you have questions that you'd like us to answer, you can leave them in the comment section right down below. Do not forget that. But there is one here from Gabriel Calvo. JayMike, there's an alien invasion. You can only save 5 pairs of football boots. Which ones would they be? Josh, you lived through something familiar. You don't have to answer. So I thought about it, and I would basically take my 3 CR7 signature boots, the white gold, the white black orange Vapor 9s, and the rare gold Superfly 4s. I would take my what would I take? I would take my Adipure 4 SLs, and I would take probably my Mercurial R9s that are 9 signed. So
ooh, that's good.
That's it.
See, I mean, I know I was exempt from this question, but I'll answer it anyways. I wouldn't be, honestly, I don't think there's too much specific stuff that I would really go after.
No?
Like I understand the sign stuff. There was a pair, I did save my Superfly 1 samples. Those were on the floor. They would have been destroyed if I did not save those. I think those are cool. I really like my Vapor 4 SL, which was also on the ground, and I saved those. I quite like those. Other than that, I'd probably just grab some of the more like the Black History Month Superfly 4, just because I paid so much money for them, and I would feel bad if I didn't take them in the situation where I was being invaded by aliens. Can I just counter question? Why do you need 5 very valuable and rare football boots if you're being invaded by aliens?
Yeah.
He's kind of implying that like this is going to like I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's not a great question.
It's a bargaining tool. So yeah, that's how it goes.
All right.
I have one more. These shoes might be before Josh's time. Thank you for not considering me in this question because I clearly remember them. But please Google the Reebok Sidewinder from 1997-ish. Would like to hear your critique of the sole plate. Ha ha. So if you're at a computer, Josh, Google the Reebok Sidewinder. I think it was a 96.
I know what it is. It's actually the Sidewinder Evolution. Is Evolution or Revolution one of them? But it's got this really weird. I'm familiar with the boots because I tried to buy them at one point, but I couldn't find any that were actually for sale. But yeah, it's got a very weird swoopy stud pattern. I don't even know how you describe that.
It's kind of I wouldn't say it's not exactly similar to that of the Mizuno Wave Ignitus 2s and also what we see on the Wave Cup Legends, but it's weird in a similar way that the studs are just completely randomly shaped and sized.
Yeah, they kind of flow. They're like big, imagine like big long studs that kind of flow across the boot. It kind of reminds, like, you ever seen like the deep tread on like a monster truck tire?
Yep.
It kind of looks like you flatten that out and put it across the bottom. It's a little unusual. I'd be curious to actually try that. I don't think it'd be that bad. But the one thing, like, you compared it to the original Wave Ignitus stud patterns, those were good on harder ground. If the ground had any kind of softness or there was any kind of mud in the environment, it would clog up really easily.
So bad. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you just wouldn't have any traction. But in general, I didn't hate that stud pattern.
I think I'd probably stay away from this one, Sidewinder, but that's how it goes.
I really want a pair of those, though. Those are cool. They're actually kangaroo leather, too.
If anyone out there has a pair, you should hook him up. It looks cool, though. The upper looks cool. Classic Reebok.
Yeah, I like them. I've got a question here from Ozitsky FIFA Skiller. He says, this is actually not a question, it's more of a comment, and he's kind of right. I don't really know why Jay was laughing at this. Josh lost thousands of dollars in this. And he's referring to, obviously, the last podcast where
I was basically laughing my balls off while you were telling the story. And I'm sorry, and I know it's very insensitive. See, the thing here is that before we did the podcast, I think it was actually the same day that we recorded the previous podcast. So the same day it happened, right? You texted me and told me everything that had been going on. So it was basically all the shock and sympathy I had given that to Josh, giving him my condolences. So basically it was hearing Josh retelling the story, and particularly it was just, it's so crazy that it's hard to find a face that fits, right? So what do people do when that's the situation? Well, we laugh. It's so absurd.
It is. It's a pretty wild situation.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people I know don't really have a good idea of like they don't have a grasp of how many shoes or boots that I actually have. So when I told them like, oh, how'd your week go? Oh, not the greatest week. Oh, what happened? Oh, my basement flooded with sewage. Oh, that sucks. And it's like, yeah, I'll just leave it there because you really have no idea how much it actually sucks. Yeah. But whatever. It is what it is.
And it's also, sometimes the situation is so grim that the best way to react is actually to laugh about it, because that's the only way to deal with it instead of just sulking. So if you're wondering if I'm just laughing at Josh and being happy about it, that's not the case. I have actually said I'm sorry to hear that a lot of times because it really sucks. Yeah, I'm sorry. And I'm laughing again here. It's
that's okay. If I ever feel like you're bullying me, I'll let you know. Don't worry.
Thank you. But just so guys out there don't think I'm just being a jerk. Anyways, we also have a really interesting, and speaking of questions that aren't actually questions, but comments here. One from a guy called Chuang Po Yang. And we talked about the heel counter topic here a couple of podcasts back, whether it should be internal or external. If you'll excuse me, I'm just bringing up my laptop here because I'm semi-blind. But it says here, he apparently knows quite a big deal about it. About the heel counter subject, the internal heel counter is usually made by TPU, and the thickness is usually around 2 millimeters to 1.5 millimeters. 1.5 millimeters would be reasonable and thick enough. If the heel counter is external, then it allows the heel counter to have more thickness for modeling into a better look. Anyway, in this case, you still only have 2 millimeters or 1.5 millimeters space to work with, and it really doesn't have much difference for any replacement of materials as far as we know. If it does, you still have to maintain the lockdown instead of using some really soft material. About the manufacturing process, they only have minor differences, although the setup processes are different, but the numbers of setup steps are pretty much the same. And that is because every step is a cost, apparently. Back to heel counter itself, external heel counters are usually more expensive due to an extra molds for it comparing to an internal one. I hope it helps. And he already talked to one of his supervisors, so it should be correct. See, I love these kind of comments because it shows sometimes how little we actually know about boot manufacturing, what kind of thoughts go into all this, and just because we learn new stuff, and that's awesome. So thank you, and yeah.
Yeah, he's right. You don't really think about building a football boot, but you have to think, okay, each step takes a certain amount of time, which ultimately you have to have some way of doing it. So you're either having to build a machine to do it or paying a person to do it. And yeah, he's right. It's a lot. There's a lot more to it than you actually realize.
And especially because sole plate molds are just ridiculously expensive to make. And every time you have to make a new size, obviously you have to make a new mold. So yeah, it makes quite a lot of sense actually now. So big up, my man. This is what the Boot Nerds podcast is also for, that everyone becomes more knowledgeable.
I like that. I got a good question here from Didish. He asks, what was the first boot you were like, I have to have these?
Oh, that would have been what would that have been? That would have been, I want to say accelerators. Yeah, that would have been the accelerator back in 1998. I never got it back then because I was 10 years old and I didn't wear high-end boots at the time. But that was the first boot that I went to my local sports store and stood with it in my hands and looked at it and thought, wow, whenever I get old enough and get enough money, I'm going to buy myself one of these. So that was my first kind of wow experience with a high-end boot. What about you?
For me, it was a random shopping trip and we were in a sporting goods store and I was wandering, probably around the same age. I'd say 10 years old is probably about right.
Uh-huh.
And I saw a black and white Nike T90, Air Zoom T92.
Right. Oh, that is also a look. I remember those so well.
And I just remember seeing, because at that time, just having the laces pushed to the side gave it such a unique look compared to everything else. I loved how the white kind of faded into the toe.
Yeah.
And then just the way that sole plate and stud pattern looked was just so cool in comparison to almost anything that was out there.
Yeah.
And that was the first boot where I was like, wow, this is special. Because up until that point, it was just like whatever my parents bought me and I kind of just dealt with it.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. And I also remember, one of my first, takedown boots I got was the Air Zoom T91. And I remember, really recognizing that very distinct look on the heel it had. It had that very curvy wide pad on the heel, the Air Zoom 91. And then when I was one day watching a football match, Benny McCarthy from South Africa was wearing the Air Zoom 92s. And I looked at the heel and I thought, that is not what the heel usually looks like. And I knew he was wearing the boots. So that's how I found out about the Air Zoom T92s.
Yeah.
Funny story.
That's really cool.
So
it's
even
funny
at the
when
age
you
of very, very young, I was damaged permanently.
Yeah, that's an interesting, it's maybe less of an interesting question for the younger generation now, because they just see everything on Instagram. But back then, you had to go to the store and see them. Otherwise, you didn't get really get to see the boots, because when you watch on TV and the camera quality is certainly not what it is now. So it's just, you had to really know back then and actually had to go to a store and see them in person to get an idea of what these boots were like, versus now it's kind of being shoved in your face by random guys in Canada and Denmark. And
yeah, man,
the rest is history.
Don't listen to these guys.
I also never got those T90s, by the way.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, absolutely not.
Well, this is the beauty of being old and having money, because now you can just go back and buy all the retro stuff, which I have done. Yes, I know.
Okay.
I have one last question here, if you don't mind. It's from Frixio. Boot Nerds, I really need this question answered. What are your favorite football boots from each brand? But no old boots allowed. So basically only recent boots. Please answer in your following podcast. Many thanks. So I figured, okay, we just take turns. Each brand. First thing that pops into your head. Nike.
Phantom Venom.
Mercurial Vapor 13. Adidas.
X99.1.
Agreed, but if it's inline, COPA19 plus. Puma.
King Platinum.
I agree. Mizuno.
I like the beta, but the beta is limited and not going to be around. If it's not beta, it's Rebula.
Yes, I agree exactly with that. Umbro.
The new one.
The UX Acura, yeah.
It's UX Acura. Sorry,
Yeah,
I can never remember. I'm bad at remembering Umbro.
New Balance.
Oh, definitely the Tequila.
Tequila Touche, yeah. Lotto.
Oh, I really like the Stadio 45. I'm a big fan of that.
I would say Lotto Maestro, still my favorite. It's great. It's actually awesome. Joma, I have no idea, but I know what you're gonna say, so go ahead and say it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it'd have to be a championship boot. Champion Max for sure.
Champion Max.
We're still waiting.
Probably.
Joma, if you're watching, we are all anticipating the Champion Max 2. We need a follow-up.
Yes, please. And now there is, I would say, some inspiration in the market, so maybe you can go and take a look at
some
that.
inspiration in the market. Oh, that's good.
And also, soon, my good friend here will receive an even bigger inspiration where you can actually look at a boot model and a colorway that might suit the new Champion Max 2. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those. It's gonna be good.
What's happening, Nike? Where are our boots, man? We've ordered them so long ago, and they're not. We're gonna show you when they show up, of course, and we're gonna review them. And basically, I'm gonna also laugh at Josh because I think his boots are gonna get they're gonna be really ugly. But I mean,
that was a long time ago. That episode was published on July 25th.
Wow,
that is a long time ago.
Speed it up, Nike. But
yeah,
I think with those words, we're going to be back when, obviously, also, we're going to be back next week as well. But we're also going to let you know when the Nike ID, Nike by You boots arrive. Now, before you go, don't forget that if you have any questions, you should leave them in the comment section right down below. If you haven't already subscribed to the Boot Nerds podcast, you can click the black bubble in the middle. That's very important. You can also go and follow the Lace Master Josh on soccerreviewsforyou.com right over on the side. You can also see what we're up to at Unisport. Always fun and games. And finally, don't forget to hit the bell notification button to get a little ding on your phone every time a new podcast drops. And with that said, let's cut it off. I'm JayMike and I approve this message.
See you later.
Peace.